What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through a full 9-game slate. Still not breaking the double digits on slate sizes, but one of the bigger slates we've had in the last few weeks. Plenty of injury information to talk through. With me to do it, as always, Mike Gallagher. Mike, how are you feeling today?
Doing good. Sorry for being a little late. Need to get a quick little restart. We didn't need to freeze like we did the last time we needed a restart, so apologies. It's my fault for being late. Also, we wanted to get a little bet out that was a little tied to injury that we're going to talk about. Do not blow up our spot. So, my bad. But hopefully we got the goods for you. No hike again today. Still hurting, so I was able to dig in, looked at all the minutes. Feeling pretty good today.
We've got 3 teams on the back end of back-to-backs tonight, Indiana, Memphis, and Sacramento, and 3 teams on the front end of back-to-backs tonight, Chicago, Dallas, and Portland. So some nice synergy there. Let's get into the game-by-game stuff. Let's start with Brooklyn and Orlando. On the Brooklyn side of things, still without, of course, Ben Simmons, but we do get back Cam Johnson listed available with the right ankle sprain. What are your notes around Cam Johnson's return and how it impacts Brooklyn's lineup tonight?
Yeah, got called probably yesterday and got upgraded about 2 hours ago, so he will be good to go. Obviously, he traveled and was planning to travel for pretty much the weekend, so they were pretty much expecting him to play here, again, going through some practice. The question is whether he starts or not. So we haven't really seen Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas in the starting lineup together for quite some time. So just coming off injury, given how often Cam Johnson's been hurt this year, and it's been a lot, it's been like 5, 6, 7 different leg injuries. I think he comes off the bench. So I think they stick with the same starting lineup. Dennis Schroeder, Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, and then Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson off the bench. We'll see if we'll see how squeezed Jalen Wilson gets. I think they'll still keep Dennis Smith Jr. as the backup point guard. Lonnie might feel a little bit of a squeeze because I think they want to maybe look at Jalen Wilson a little bit. And then we'll see if they go small, right? We know they really like that Dorian Finney-Smith small ball lineup. Does that cut into Sharp a little bit? I don't know. Orlando loves to attack the paint. I don't know if you want to go small, but you do need Dorian to guard Powell at the 4. So kind of think they run it pretty big. So I think the guards and wings could feel a little bit of a squeeze here. We took a little bit of minutes off of Cam Thomas and then a little bit off the guards, but we kept Mikal pretty much the same. He was playing upper 40s at times. But should note, the last time Mikal played the Magic, this was hey, we are giving up our whole game plan. Our game plan is to stop Mikal Bridges, and then the Nets couldn't score 80, whatever it was. They had like a 72 offensive rating that game. So pretty much an auto fade on Mikal here. But they didn't have Cam Thomas in that game.
Cam Thomas,
so,
yeah.
Not as easy to do difference. That, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's a huge difference in terms of game planning from a Magic perspective. So we'll see if they adopt the same strategies that they used before. But I guess that they don't, honestly. I think Cam Thomas is just a different animal in terms of what they're dealing with there. Okay, let's go to Orlando, where their injury report is really clean here, just without some G Leaguers. What are your notes on the Magic tonight?
Yeah, they're healthy. Really, the first time we haven't really seen an injury tag on them in a while, whether it's Markel Fultz getting the management back-to-back tag. Same with Jonathan Isaac. We've seen Jalen Suggs get dinged up here and there. Wendell Carter Jr. has been dealing with the injuries. So this is really the healthiest they've been and really you could say all season, considering the limitations that Jonathan Isaac had on him to start the season. So, don't really have much to say. We've seen Jalen Suggs play pretty strong minutes at times, but he's also cratered sometimes due to some foul trouble. Obviously has a pretty big ask on his hands, but it's still expecting them to start with the Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Wendell Carter Jr. in the first unit. Still a little bit of Cole Anthony minutes should come down. Anthony Black probably feels the squeeze a little bit. Jonathan Isaac still in there, and then Mo Wagner as well. We'll see Caleb Houston out of the starting lineup with the guards, like we back and pretty close to full go relative to where we usually expected them.
On to Toronto and Detroit. Toronto's injury report very full here. No Scotty Barnes, no RJ Barrett listed out due to personal reasons, no Chris Boucher, no DJ Carton, no Mohamed Gueye, no Jakob Poeltl, and questionable tags on Gary Trent Jr. and Emmanuel Quickly. We've talked during the course of the season, whether it's been on our podcast or on the show at times, about the protections on the pick that Toronto has this year that encourages them to finish essentially in the top 6 or 7. Top six. Is it top six protected? And because Memphis has actually won some games of late, they've kind of creeped up into that range where they could potentially overtake Memphis and give themselves a shot. Now, so a reminder of how the lottery process works is very simply, if the top 3 teams in odds all finish, all are lotto ball, lucky and finish in the top 3, then Toronto needs to finish with the 6th worst record to be able to keep their pick. Otherwise, they have to get lucky themselves and get into that top 3 or options to be able to keep their pick. So a lot of motivation for Toronto as the schedule winds down to lose games in terms of being able to keep their first round pick this year. How does that color the availability potentially of Gary Trent Jr. and Emmanuel Quickley tonight?
Yeah, and also keep in mind who they're playing. They're playing the Pistons, and I think opponent matters for who you sit out. Should also mention that they both got ruled out, Gary Trent and IQ. They got ruled out early last game against the Nuggets. So a team where you shouldn't need to tank, although they were up 22 in that game. They were playing pretty well. I know you took a live bet there. I didn't have the guts to do it. Shame on me. But yeah, so there should be incentivized to tank. And also worth noting, they're listed with strains. This isn't listed with soreness. This isn't like a contusion. This is like listed as an injury. So given that and the matchup and being so close to Memphis, as you can see on Tankathon, they get about a 5.2% boost to move into the top 4. And then again, like if they get 6 and then everything holds behind, they get to keep their pick. So they still have to, worry about a team leapfrogging them and all that. So, just roughly considering, I'd call it an 8% increase just off the top of my head to keep that 6th pick if they could kind of get to number 6. So it's worth it to them. So yeah, that pretty much covers that. So let's talk about how they would fill that void because they're getting pretty thin. Bruce Brown started off an injury and played 38. He would start again. He got full go. He would be locked and loaded. Grady Dick's locked and loaded. There was comments from Darko, the coach, saying that it was great to see him get 36 minutes and pick up a little bit more handling role. They ran a ton of off-screen stuff and dribble handoff stuff with him. And Darko talked about it being great for him to get those reps. So that is like, we're tanking to play this guy, right? Like that's another layer to this. So I think Grady Dick's starting regardless. And then if they're both out, so one of IQ or Trent would start. And then, if they're both out, they probably, I want to say Freeman Liberty, but like I kind of whiffed on that last time. So I don't really want to go down that road again. But they could go to Nwora. They could go McDaniels for defense. So they'd be just really thin. And then the other note here was Jonte Porter got a pretty good amount of minutes. That was against Denver, also against his brother. We gave him most of the non-Olympic minutes. The Pistons aren't going to play small. They're playing James Weissman. Jalen Duren is a load. So we've got them covering most of the 48. We landed at 46 minutes. So, yeah, but I think those guys could definitely sit to really thin them out in a matchup that we usually love. But the Pistons defense has actually been, like, better. Not good, not average, but, like, not terrible.
Yeah, and I would note, in terms of RJ Barrett, the way that I think through just his absence potentially here, obviously if you've got Quickley and Trent back in the mix, those guys would be coming in over Agbaji and probably Barrett if they're both available because of Grady Dick being locked in. But if we think about just how the substitution patterns were for Barrett specifically last game without Quickley and Trent, it was mostly like Jalen McDaniels was mostly the sub for him, and then they overlapped. So I think McDaniels is now ahead of Nwora based on substitution patterns, and so I think that's where we'd be going. But it's a little bit tricky, as you mentioned, because they'd be short ball handling, and they were willing to let Barrett ball handle quite a bit. But Bruce Brown can do that for them. So I think that's where they'd go. I think they just play Bruce Brown as like the point guard in that situation, as opposed to elevating Freeman Liberty. But we'll see. Obviously, it's not the cleanest of rotations in general to talk through.
Yeah, and I'll just add the RJ Barrett. I've been talking about this for over a week now. He had 6.1 minutes of touch time. That's like more than LeBron. He had a full handling role, which is now gone. So again, they just really need handling. And Freeman Liberty didn't handle at all, even in his minutes. He was playing like off the wing a bunch.
Yeah, would like to see at some point, and I'm sure we will, Marcus Noel, who was really good at Kansas State last year. He's small, but he's a true facilitator. So I'm interested to see if they're short, quick, if they are without Quickley tonight and RJ Barrett, if we even see him get in the mix. If they started Freeman Liberty, I think Noel would play in that scenario. Okay, let's move to the Detroit side of things, where Asar Thompson.
You cut out.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Am I just lagged?
No, you're good. You're good. No,
Okay.
probably
Am I
lagging now, huh?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're lagging.
Why don't you talk through Detroit and I'll pop out and back in.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about Asar Thompson. While he missed that last game, he got out there warming up on time and even early. That was noted by, I think, James Edwards. So it was quite odd to see him. And we don't get asthma tags a lot. I did a little bit of research on this, and like DeAndre Hunter had an asthma tag. He missed and then returned for the next game. So I think he's going to be back. And we saw him play a pretty good bet. He hit like 40 minutes in the Brooklyn Nets game, 43, I think the number was. They played him a ton. So we dinged him like a little bit for that. And then obviously Simone Fontecchio just got all the minutes and played great. Got a lot of talk from teammates, the coaches, and all that. They played great. They kind of blew out the Hornets there. So yeah, not a great read. Again, just very unusual to get this asthma tag there. So, but yeah, that's kind of all we got. Desmond Bain. We got a Desmond Bain doubtful tag. We got the Grizzlies report here. So, and for you guys listening out there, I got a game for you guys in chat. I'm going to promote comments. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Can you guess Memphis' starting lineup tonight? That is the game of the day. As we now have the injury report, though. Vince doubtful. I was waiting for this. I knew they were going to do it on the show, and this is fun. Okay.
Not great for my season-long hopes with Jaren Jackson once again missing another game. Yeah, tough to try to compete in this industry pickup league with AD having just 2 games this week, Gobert just 2 games, no Jaren Jackson, just getting worked with my top season-long picks.
Santee questionable as well.
Chicago and Indiana. Chicago side of things, Torrey Craig listed probable here, Julian Phillips listed questionable. No other substantial injury notes that differ from what we've seen of late. So what are your notes on the Bulls with the probable tag for Craig and the questionable tag for Julian Phillips?
I don't really have much to say. Julian Phillips, we saw him pick up a little bit of minutes and played pretty well. Billy Donovan said they're not going to base his minutes off of playing well in one game. So we gave that a little bit of credit. We seen Omar at Teams kind of stay in the mix, picked up some garbage time. I think he's kind of in the mix, but certainly not enough to play because, as we talked about, when the games are close, they just play this massive minutes. They got absolutely the doors blown off them in the first quarter and couldn't recover in the Mavericks game. So yeah, should be pretty full division game, not in a back-to-back. They are in a front end, they play tomorrow, but still expecting pretty strong minutes. The starting lineup plays pretty much more than anybody in the NBA together.
Indiana side of things, they've got some questionable tags on G League guys, and then James Johnson, who doesn't really play, still without Benedict Mathurin and Doug McDermott. What are your notes on the Pacers tonight?
Very little. They're on a back-to-back. They are coming off a really impressive win at OKC. Halliburton was great. They got some pretty decent late defense. Made life tough on SGA. Andrew Nembhard, I thought, played one of his best defensive games in quite some time. But yeah, we've seen Halliburton play 36 routinely in close games. They had a little bit of blowouts before that. But we just got to note what Tyrese Halliburton has done to the Bulls. He had a 20 assist, no turnover game against them earlier this year. And then the other game he had, I think 15-16, he has 50 potential assists in 2 games against the Bulls. This man just dimes up the Bulls like crazy. So expecting the same starting lineup. Obi Toppin, as we expected, would maybe pick up a little bit of a small ball lineup. He played pretty well. Plus minus didn't reflect that, but he had some pretty big plays in the first half. We did get Jarris Walker in there for the front of the back-to-back. Expect that to continue here. So pretty much running it back. We did get the McConnell overlap to get run down, considering the Bulls, how they play, not too big. I think that maybe they'd run more overlap, but not going to be a ton, just because I think Halliburton's minutes picking up so much has been kind of hurting McConnell a little bit.
All right, Denver and Miami rematch of the finals from last year, this time in South Beach on the Denver injury report. Nothing substantial listed here, so they go in fully healthy, just without their G Leaguers. What are your notes on the Nuggets?
Very little. It's just been the Jamal Murray Joker pick and roll. That's what they've been running so often. And the minutes have been huge. We've seen these guys play a ton. So I was just wrapping up Denver minutes before I hopped on the injury show. I think we're a little light. Just because I think this national TV game, they've been playing a ton. Should be a tough game, assuming Jimmy plays. Get to that. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And then the bench is just going to be really thin. They're kind of going for it. And then OKC falling yesterday. Obviously, Minnesota, despite their big win, they're vulnerable. We know there's been a lot of commentary about wanting to get the number 1 seed, and it's kind of well within range right now. So expecting kind of big minutes. Obviously, the matchup's not very good for Joker. Bam held him a little bit. I think it was like 23 points last game. Jamal got hurt in the last game, which allowed Michael Porter Jr. to go ham. He had a 30-point game the last time they played Miami, but that was because Jamal Murray got hurt. It's still a great matchup. Miami just giving up a ton of threes. Rim defense has been really good. And again, Bam's a fantastic defender, as good as Joker is.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what Jokic did to Bam in the finals, though. Bam's too small. Bam's too small. Like, honestly, he's just too small for Jokic. So, he'll do his best down there, but Jokic is going to give him the work most likely. Heat side of the injury report: Jimmy Butler listed probable with an illness, non-COVID related. Caleb Martin listed available with a left thumb sprain, still without Tyler Hero, Jamal Cain, Josh Richardson, Alondas Williams. What are your notes on the Heat tonight?
Yeah, keep an eye on that Jimmy P tag. I had illness, so I'm not sure if this is like a migraine thing. He went through some practice yesterday. Pretty much all indications are he's going to play, but this is Miami we're talking about here. So always a little bit of skepticism there. They are coming off, hands down, their worst loss of the season. You lose to Washington at home, and you're a playoff team. That is default the worst game of the year for you. So that kind of what I'm kind of setting up, like, do they pull Jovic here to get somebody to put on Murray? I don't think they're going to put Rozier on him. They don't really close with Jovic anyway, so maybe they just stick with it. But wouldn't be surprised if you get a little bit of a plug pull. They've been routinely closing with Caleb Martin, who's been pretty frequently around 30 minutes in close games. So it probably doesn't matter too much minutes wise. Gives Caleb a little bit more of a ceiling. But kind of got my eye on that. Really bad matchup for Duncan Robinson. The Nuggets are third at limiting catch and shoot stuff. So we'll see if anything shakes up here after again, just a really, really bad loss. And they're just not playing well all of a sudden.
Charlotte and Memphis on the Charlotte side of the injury report. This has got to be the injury report game of the day in terms of fullness of the injury report. On the Charlotte side, no LaMelo Ball, Leaky Black, Marquez Bolden, Seth Curry, Cody Martin, Bryce McGowens, or Mark Williams. Trey Mann listed questionable here. So that's an upgrade from Trey Mann from the doubtful tag he carried last game. What are your expectations on his availability tonight and how it impacts Charlotte? Yeah,
we have the Mike Gallagher bad basketball game of the night here. This should be really ugly. Two really bad offenses. And since I think February 23rd, the Hornets have the worst offense, worse than the Grizzlies, which is saying something. So just horrendous offense in this game. But yeah, the question will be, does Trey Mann start coming off a groin injury, multiple game misses? I think he could be limited either way, but I am expecting him to start. That would bump, I would think, Grant Williams back to the bench. It would take a lot of minute ceiling off Nick Richards, seeing him touch 36 last game, routinely been getting to 30. I think that's a lot less likely given that Grant Williams was closing over him a bunch when they had Trey Mann. So Nick, it's kind of weird that you think that Trey Mann returning hurts Nick Richards the most. From a minute standpoint, but of guys who matter, it kind of hurts him. I think Grant's minutes are still pretty stable. He'll still kind of find it. I think that they still want to play Nick Smith Jr., so I think this is going to make them play a little bit smaller and kind of cut out JT Thor. We'll see if Poku goes away. Berton's minutes aren't going to be as attractive. Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller generally unaffected here, especially without now Jaren Jackson doubtful. Could be certainly a lot going on. From a minute standpoint. Again, Miles Bridges is crushing minutes since he returned from suspension. He's number 1 in the NBA in total minutes.
Yeah, the note on Nick Richards, I'd note that Nick Richards, this was the first game he had closed. He hadn't been closing even in these instances. Davis Bertans is the guy who's been closing. So if we're talking about somebody losing minutes because of Trey Mann closing, I think it's actually Davis Bertans that is probably more vulnerable than Nick Richards. Nick Richards probably doesn't have the 36 ceiling that we just saw last game because this was the first game that he kind of did close a little bit against a bigger opponent. Memphis, from a size perspective, isn't going to be the biggest opponent, so that leaves him vulnerable as well. But I just think in general, Bertans is the guy. We'd seen him get into the upper 20s and 30s. I think he could, settle back down in the teens if Trey Mann is back.
Yep.
Okay. Memphis side, your time to shine, Mike. In terms of their injury report, what they listed, I'm just going to read through Underdog here.
I got it on the screen if you want to just go off that.
Okay, perfect. So there we go. Questionable tags on Santi Aldama, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Lamar Stevens. Doubtful tags on Desmond Bane, Vince Williams Jr., and Jaren Jackson Jr., and of course, all the out tags that they've had of late. So who does that leave us with? Of note, Jordan Goodwin and Trey Jemison, the two guys that we've been monitoring from a games played perspective, not listed on the injury report. Yeah. Goodwin was questionable going into last night's game, so that's a little bit unusual. What are your expectations for the Grizzlies tonight?
Yeah, also of note that John Concher got a Q tag, didn't get one today. So it looks like he's good. I thought he was going to get another Q or an out tag. So it looks like he's in. And then Lamar Stevens got the Q tag. So two guys who got the Q tag yesterday didn't get it all today. So it sounds like they're expected back here. But really, the headline for people who play fantasy basketball is like, go pick up Desmond Bane right now if he's out there and dropped. Again, you're probably going to have to deal with a lot of DMPs, but it's Desmond freaking Bane. But yeah, for today, a whole lot going on here. So Scottie Pippen Jr., he's a candidate to start. Jordan Goodwin candidate to start. We saw him start yesterday in that triple guard lineup. Yeah, still no Vince. He's doubtful. So they've got like really, they've got it's going to probably be Goodwin. And then now that if they have these guys, like they might just want to keep good because Goodwin's games are getting up there. I think he's down to like 9 now. I could double check, but it's like 8 or 9, something like that. So maybe they keep his minutes, keep his game count down, inactive him if they do have these guys back. But then again, hey, if you're getting Desmond Bane back, who cares about the games? So they might use it here. So again, kind of a whole lot going on. I kind of think Scottie Pippen starts. I think Conchar and Kennard would start. And then does Santi play? Does he not? I don't know. I think Trey Jemison coming off a career high certainly solidified himself to start. So if Santi didn't play, then we'd be looking at maybe Lamar Stevens would start. Maybe they would go smaller there. Who?
GG
Jackson. Yeah, I missed GG. Yeah, GG would probably start. So I take GG's probably a pretty good bet to start almost regardless. I would say minutes have been pretty strong. I think he'll find his minutes regardless. So yeah, pretty good news for GG for now for his like last hurrah before they get Desmond Bane being managed.
Yeah, well, if we think of it just if we think of it just in the context of what they had yesterday compared to what they have today, right? Right now, all of the guys that they started yesterday are not ruled out. So in the bodies that they could be adding to the mix are just Lamar Stevens and Scottie Pippen Jr. So if we're talking about starters from yesterday and assuming that there's some sort of continuity there, I think very clearly if Scottie Pippen Jr. is available, I think Jordan Goodwin is inactive tonight. I think it's like pretty clear there because they can just slide Scottie Pippen Jr. into either the starting lineup, depending on if they think there's any minutes limitations on him, or they could play different lineup iterations. But between him and DeJoun Giroux, they have ball handling like settled and they'd be fine there. If they have Lamar Stevens back, they just have more depth in the front court. You might see Wenyen Gabriel not play in that instance, which we were waiting to see if Wenyen Gabriel would check in because we didn't even know if he was still with this team or with the team he signed in Puerto Rico. If Aldama's unable to go, I think just from a substitution pattern, if you look at where Aldama tended to come in and out, he was being subbed mostly with Wenyen Gabriel yesterday, but right before him, his sub was GG Jackson. So I think Stevens or GG would be the replacements there for Santi Aldama. And I think you're right that Trey Jemison, just because you're not super concerned about his games count, whenever Jaren gets back, you can just not play Jemison. I think he's probably locked in to start, especially after having a really nice game last night. So I think Scottie Pippen Jr. is the push and pull with Jordan Goodwin, most likely. I think Aldama is a little bit of a push and pull with Stevens if he's available, but also with GG Jackson. And then Wenyen Gabriel could potentially go away entirely, is kind of my read on the situation.
Yeah, and I'll just add with Trey Jemison, he got the best matchup yesterday. Centers against the Wizards is the best matchup, and now he gets like the second best matchup against the Hornets. So hey, if you're Trey Jemison's agent and you're listening to the show, shout out to you. But you're about to have some leverage for negotiations on your next contract. Make sure you have the highlight tape ready to roll for this game and yesterday's.
All right, Cleveland and New Orleans. On the Cleveland side, we await the let him know tweet later on today. Donovan Mitchell is listed questionable with that left knee bone bruise, was at shoot around this morning. They're still without Evan Mobley, Max Strus, and Dean Wade. Dean Wade still listed out for personal reasons. What are your notes on Donovan Mitchell tonight?
Yeah, so the reason why I was late on top of my computer needing a restart was we took an under on Donovan Mitchell. We had like a slight under at 35 minutes. And so let's just get, and we eventually dropped to 33 so let's give the timeline here. So Donovan Mitchell said the first week after All-Star break, he was dealing with knee soreness. And then we saw, fast forward a couple weeks, started missing games, got the PRP treatment, and he had an illness between that. I still got to change my phone. So again, like he had the illness working against him, and then we have the layer of, again, this isn't as severe as Darius Garland. Darius Garland was eating out of a straw, and then Evan Mobley had like a more severe procedure, and they were like really, really limited. So we're not going to see like the 20s, but like we might see a 30. They might run him at 30 minutes. Their depth's not like dire. Certainly, they're going to miss Max Strus. Before I forget, Max Strus, according to Chris Feeder, will be back at the end of the month. So if you have him season long, Max Strus, like don't be counting on him. And then Evan Mobley still not goes, but with Donovan, so like it just feels like the third. Like if the guy had PRP treatment, it just feels like and he already had soreness going into it. It just feels irresponsible for the workload they give him to like really run him up there. And he'd be getting Herb Jones tonight, so we get really good matchup, possible limit, terrible matchup, and honestly, possible blowout with the freaking schedule the Cavs have had to deal with lately. So there's kind of just a lot working for us on this under. So if he did start, if he did play, he would almost certainly start. He would start, like almost no doubt. Next, and he would be taking essentially the place of Karis LeVert, who will move back to his more natural 6-man role. Darius Garland, who is coming off a pretty strong role and just insane first quarter against the Suns, and they double teamed the hell out of Garland after that first quarter. Nice adjustment from Frank Vogel. Okoro would start and guard Brandon Ingram. George Niang likely has to guard Zion. They could flip it, though. I could see them actually putting Jared Allen on Zion, but Zion bringing up the ball up. That's a little funky. And then obviously Jared Allen would start. Damian Jones getting the non-Allens. Craig Porter Jr., we kind of have going away with Donovan back, if he is back, because they just need size. So we actually have Isaiah Mobley a little bit of a head. Mobley guard Kevin Durant a little bit in the last game, so I think that makes sense. And then Sam Merrill's ceiling is kind of cut down. So, but we're still waiting. Again, as you mentioned, make sure you let them know notifications are on for Donovan Mitchell's Twitter.
And for the Cavs, after this game, they do have two consecutive days off. It's unfortunately for the Cavs, just one of 2 times on they have 2 additional times on the calendar where they have 2 or more days off after this. It's still just a compact schedule for them down the stretch here, but they're starting out a 3-game road trip here: New Orleans, Houston, Indiana, and I thought as soon as we got Mitchell back, we'd see Garland pop up on the injury report, but he came out of last game clean, so that's looking good. And I think at this point, it's just like, let's get through this game and then get 2 days off and see if we can reset things for Cleveland. On the New Orleans side, they have the same injury report as always. No questionable tags on their main guys. I cannot believe Cody Zeller continues to get listed available. But without Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, or CJ McCollum on the injury report, all clean today. Still without Dyson Daniels. That's, I guess, the most notable thing there. But what are your notes on the Pelicans?
Yeah, Dyson won't be back for a little bit. Had surgery on his knee. But and I knew exactly why you were laughing when you started to laugh there. I don't have much to add. The only thing that, like, just stats-wise, Trey Murphy is firing. If you remember that quote that their goal was to get to 40 catch-and-shoot shots per game, which is just impossible. That was a pretty big tell that they're, like, ready to let Trey Murphy go from, hey, give him the ball, let him shoot, and B, CJ McCollum's off ball. He has lost all his handling, and he's got, like, no assists anymore. So that's a pretty big thing. It's been Brandon Ingram and Zion, like, co-leading the offense. Zion's playing a ton. He's been great. He's been really active. The Cavs are, again, like, Brandon Ingram's going to have to get Isaac Okoro on him. Almost cover boy Zion, despite the rim protection, is pretty tough. So that's kind of where we're at. Herb Jones just playing out of his mind, man. The guy, like, as I mentioned before, their on-ball defense has just risen and risen and risen. They are coming up the ranks on defense. They've been really, really good. Pelicans, they played some poor teams, but they are kind of within. I think they played the Clippers in a couple games. Yeah, they played the Clippers on Friday. So the Pelicans, they win this one. They win with a possible no Kawhi Leonard on Friday. We could be talking 4 seed.
Yeah, they've created some separation for themselves from that 5 through 8 range with their play of late, and certainly always made the most sense for this roster, just in terms of finding its offensive ceiling, to have the ball in the hands of the 2 guys who can't shoot, Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, and get the ball in the hands of those guys, and then floor space with the guys who can shoot, Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum. develop Herb Jones into a shooter. That always made the most sense for the Pels, and they're thriving with that. All right, Golden State at
We should
Dallas.
note one more thing, actually, if I can. The Joval minutes. We've seen routinely, and this has been a thing for a month now, that they would bring Larry Nance off the bench. You do have the Larry Nance revenge factor, but do you want to go small against Jared Allen? Jared Allen's leads the NBA in paint touches since the break. I don't know if you want to do that. He's been a lot of DHOs. They've been running a lot of offense through him, which may not be doing as much of Donovan's there. But just to note that I think that going against Allen, despite the bad matchup, could boost his minutes because you don't really want to play small against Jared Allen.
Yep. All right, Golden State and Dallas. On the Golden State side, Steph Curry still out with that right ankle sprain. He's the only Warrior listed on the injury report, but there was good news around the reporting of Steph Curry. So what are your notes here on the Warriors?
Yeah, Steph will get reevaluated on Friday to give him a teensy outside chance to return on Saturday. I do not expect that to happen. Expecting him out to probably a couple more. As I noted on the last show, he had crutches apparently with him over the weekend, but wasn't using them, was not in a boot. So it sounds like more of a 1 to 2 week thing there. And then, yeah, you were on this. You were like, oh, yeah, that game was so bad 2 games ago. Kerr's got to change it. And he did. So shout out to you as Klay Thompson and Chris Paul started, played much better. They had the double wing combo in Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, and then Draymond. And then Trace Jackson's not going anywhere. They continue to play and played freaking great. I'm sure all of you guys watching have seen the poster he put on Wembanyama.
The
How
offensive
much is Gary
foul.
Payton? Oh, yeah.
That's an offensive foul. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the poster people, but you can't take the only way you're posterizing Wemby is if you take his arm that's trying to block the shot and pull it down away from being able to block the shot. That's the whole reason the poster was there. No hate on Trace Jackson Davis, my future
sure.
my guy from the preseason.
Yep. Good luck. You're outing yourself. You're gonna have to spend a first round pick on him. Anyways, a big question we were going through minutes were kind of 2 things. How much could they play Gary Payton? Like, you need Gary Payton like a lot in this matchup, and he doesn't really get to like 18, 19, 20. But like maybe he can. Maybe this is like, hey, this is your moment. We've been holding your minutes down for this game. This is like a big game for the Warriors that they want to kind of climb out of this 9-10 hole that they're in. But we didn't really we kind of like maxed him where like the reasonable range was. I think we came down to 15. Moody's minutes get cut, and then Brandon Podziemski, we had an under on him. He just absolutely nuked us. Goes 4-5 from the field, gets an and one, and kills our 11.5. So we got him at 30 minutes. So pretty tight rotation. Again, really big game. There's really 2 big games from a standing standpoint. This one, and then the Lakers Sacramento game, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we got Chris Paul. We upped him a little bit. Coming off 33, he lost like a quarter to a half rotation the last game. So I think he's got like pretty close to 30 in the bag if it's close. Could see like 34, 35. So I think he's got like low 30s. He just doesn't shoot enough. But the handling was there. Obviously led the team in touch time. Ran crappy on potential assists. Had 16 potential assists to 8 dimes. So pretty strong output from Chris Paul here in a matchup that's really good. Dallas's defense is last in their past 10 games or so, whatever I wrote in matchups.
Yeah. We'll just note on CP3, he's underperformed potential data kind of all season long. And I think one of the main reasons is he doesn't really share the floor with Steph Curry a bunch. And the Warriors don't have guys that are getting the ball at the rim. So when he's creating potentials, they're usually the 3-point shooters not named Steph Curry. So you're going to underperform potentials a little bit when that's the case. Would note on Gary Payton, I think he's really hard for his minutes to ramp up without Steph Curry. I think his minutes production is very tied to Steph Curry because of the gravity and the spacing that Steph Curry allows, makes Gary Payton useful offensively from an offensive rebounding perspective. When Steph isn't out there doing that, you don't have the same usefulness from Gary Payton on the offensive end, and it makes it really hard to create offense. They have enough challenges without Steph Curry creating offense, but the things that Gary Payton is most useful at are built on the gravity that Steph Curry brings. So I think it'll be a little bit challenging for Gary Payton to see any sort of minute ceiling. I think the minute ceiling in this one goes to Andrew Wiggins, assuming he can stay out of foul trouble, because it's the same kind of defensive principles there, but a guy who can create a little bit of offense, which they need every bit they can get without Steph Curry right now.
Yeah, and I'll add the Mavs. They're last since the break, and then third in offense since the break. The Mavs. So, do you just lean into defense like all the way, and just hope that this defense is so bad that you can kind of score? Was kind of what I was thinking for maybe just Gary Payton surviving. I do expect Jonathan Kuminga to guard Luka Doncic and Andrew Wiggins to guard Kyrie Irving.
Yep. Dallas Mavericks side of the equation, they are fully healthy. Luka not getting that questionable tag that he had last game. It looked like in this blowout, we were speculating in Slack whether they were keeping him out there to keep this 30-point triple-double streak alive. But they also had Kyrie out there, and Luka himself was not like stat padding, gunning for shots. Like it was kind of normal. They played normally. They didn't play like he was specifically hunting the 30-point mark. But regardless, that streak has ended. He still got up to 34 minutes in a wild blowout situation. So the minutes floor is very, very high for Luka these days. What are your other notes on the Mavericks?
Yeah, they were. They said after the game that they were hunting it, and then if you saw the end of his rotation, he got 3 bombs off to try to go from 27 to 30. So they were clearly hunting it. Kid said he kind of talked to him about it and said like, "Hey, we'll give you a couple more here, and then we're going to yank you out of there." So they were hunting. Really, the stat headline here is Daniel Gafford. I think it's up to 28 consecutive makes in a row. It's the most since the play-by-play era, and only Wilt Chamberlain has more consecutive makes without a miss. So does Daniel Gafford only shoot dunks? That's kind of just a fun stat. I don't think it's really relevant, but something I'll be watching tonight. And then Luka again, big game, man. Like if the Mavs get this one, that would do a lot of help to kind of keep him from falling in the standings, to give him a game away from the Warriors. And then how small do they play? Did they go the Maxi Kleber at the 5 stuff? The centers have been great, but worth noting, Billy Donovan talked about this. They just and the Bulls do this a lot. It's usually their help comes from the sides, but they brought the help from the backside and left the back door open. They gave up, what was it? I don't have it in front of me, but it was like 20 points off cuts and rolls, which is absurd. Yep. Like anything over 12 is a lot. So we'll see if the Bigs have a big. I should note the Warriors are a pretty good rim defense because they kind of just let people shoot threes on them. So
would also note just generally that, I mean, Draymond Green is one of the most thoughtful defenders in league history, and the Dallas doesn't run a lot of stuff where Gafford ever touches the ball that's not like on a lob or anything like that. But I bet if they did any sort of post entry into a dribble handoff or anything on Gafford and Draymond is the primary defender, I would bet a lot of money that Draymond Green doesn't even defend him and makes him try to attack the rim for not a dunk, thinking he's not going to do it. He's not going to do anything that's not the easiest shot possible to keep this streak alive in passing Wilt. And I wouldn't be surprised we saw Draymond initiate the idea of leaving Jaylen Brown wide open. He's thinking through ways to disarm an offense. And what the whole reasoning that they were thinking through the Jaylen Brown thing is do something that, in his mind was a lower percentage shooter, but he's not a 34% shooter when he's wide open. But the idea was to disrupt the rhythm of the offense. And they would love to be able to do that with Luka if they could in any way, shape, or form and force these other guys to shoot. So I don't think that the Mavericks never get Gafford in the ball for the position with the ball for this to ever happen. But if it was, I feel pretty confident Dre wouldn't even defend and would basically just be ready at the rim to try to contest and say, I'm going to make you make a 3-footer that's contested to keep this streak going and see if you're willing to do it. Anyways,
he'll tell you about it on his podcast.
Exactly.
If he did.
Exactly. Just great content. Atlanta and Portland. On the Atlanta side, their injury report, they're starting to go the way of Memphis here. Trae Young out, Onyeka Okongwu out, Seth Lundy out, Jalen Johnson doubtful, Mohamed Gueye. There are 2 of them. He's out for G League assignment. AJ Griffin out G League assignment. Kobe Buffkin out big toe sprain, and Sadiq Bey out left knee torn ACL. Sadiq Bey lost for some time. So what is left for Atlanta? We're into the Vit Krejci days. This team is going to be in the play-in. It's going to be ugly. What's left for the Hawks?
First of all, for Dank, I know you're listening. The Hawks listed him with a big toe sprain.
Big toe, not a great toe. Yeah. Yep.
Secondly, is this the last day I'm going to do it, Dank? Is this the last day that I'm going to say is DeAndre Hunter starting? Is this my last day? Is DeAndre Hunter finally starting today?
It's got to be.
Gotta be, right? Gotta be. So I'm going to be in shambles. We were joking, oh my God, they're going to totally start Dylan Windler just to tilt me for my DeAndre Hunter starting spiel. So let's talk about that, right? We think Hunter's going to start. But Vit Krejci was starting as a placeholder for Hunter. Now that you're not doing that anymore, do you pull Vit out? And your forward depth's gone. No Jalen Johnson, no Sadiq. They have all their power forwards are gone. So do you start Hunter and like pull Vid out and play smaller, and like maybe you start Trent Forrest in a 2-guard lineup, maybe you start Garrison Matthews next to Hunter? Because again, and Quid Snyder said that they were like, "Oh, this is our way to keep Hunter's minutes down." Which, by the way, we're not down. He played 36 over the weekend, so the minutes are there. I think Hunter starts. This is probably the first time I'm saying I think Hunter starts. Right? I've always been like, actually, last time I did, but this time I actually feel good about it. Yeah. Let's talk about DeJounte Murray. Did Luke post my article yet? I don't know. But he's my cover boy today, and we got to talk about it's up. Okay, so there's DeJounte. He's my cover boy today. I want to talk about DeJounte's role. It's insane. So since Trae Young went down, he is 3rd in drives, 1st in touch time, and 7th in potential assists. He gets the Blazers today, who are going to probably put Scoot Henderson on him. Chauncey Billups talked about having him guard on ball more. We did this a lot with Anthony Simons last year. So he's going to get a rookie on him, armed with this role against this defense. It is a rim funnel. Monster DeJounte game coming there. And then I think I kind of lined up the rotation. Good matchup for Capella. Vit's going to have to play a lot, probably mid-20s. How much can Garrison Matthews play? Wes Matthews probably in the rotation. Does Dylan Windler get minutes at all? And then how much overlap are we going to get with Trent Forrest? As I mentioned, the darkest of dark horses to start, because again, you're starting 2 guards. I think you just may want to use your guard depth to help your lack of forward depth. So I won't be surprised if we get like a couple surprises in here. But like for now, we're expecting DeJounte, Bogdan, who could play a lot, DeAndre Hunter, Vit Krejci, and then Clint Capella in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think Forrest is the least likely to start simply because you only have 3 guys who can handle on the roster at all. Like literally at all, in Forrest, Bogdanovich, and Murray. I don't think you start all 3 together. That's the only reason that I would say that Forrest is really unlikely to start. I agree with you that Hunter is in there, and I think it's going to be Vit. I think, Vit and Hunter would be the top 2 by a wide margin. Then I'd fall off to Garrison Matthews as the next most likely.
I agree. Just throwing it out there. We didn't expect Vit to start, so.
Yeah, for sure. Portland side of things, questionable tags on Jeremy Grant, Ashton Haggins, Ryan Rupert, Ibu Baji, and then probable tag on Justin Minaya, still out Malcolm Brogdon, Shaden Sharp, and Jabari Walker. What are your notes here on Portland?
Yeah, we got the Scoot start that was expected. Minutes limit came off and just played, quote, okay, because Peyton Pritchard was kind of cooking him on both ends in Peyton Pritchard's start. It's been, but I thought he looked explosive. He had a really big role, led the team in touchdown, potential assists, and drives. So the role was there off an injury. That was not great for Anthony Simons, who kind of got, to stick with a former Blazer, kind of got CJ McCollum a little bit. He kind of played off ball a bunch. So from like a pure upside standpoint and we saw that 14 dime game he had against the Wolves, probably off the table now. And they did roll, to my surprise, was Chris. I was expecting Scoot to start all day, mentioned on the show. But I was surprised to see Chris Murray start over Tumani Kamara. Kamari still got pretty good minutes. This is a back-to-back, so there's a pretty decent chance, both with Jabari Walker out and in a back-to-back. They played the Knicks tomorrow. There's a pretty good chance, I would say, that Jeremy Grant misses this game or the next one. He's going to miss one, in my opinion. So Grant or Tumani, Scoot starting the rest of the way. I mentioned that, assuming he stays healthy. And then DeAndre Ayton is playing pretty well. Matchup's really good. We love centers against the Hawks. They're pretty bad on offensive rebounding. They're a rim funnel. Clint Capella, not a spring chicken anymore. And then Delano Banton picked up the backup guard minutes there, he would get more of them. I still think they would start Tumani. We know that they've run the Banton as a starter, but I think now that you have Scoot back, it's probably a little thin. So again, Ant, Scoot, Chris Murray, DeAndre Ayton locked in, and then Jeremy Grant if he starts, and then I would go to Monty Kamara almost certainly starting after that. But then I wouldn't be surprised with this band. He is pretty long, and it's not like the Hawks are going to be very big on the other end. They lost all their power forwards.
Yeah, would also note on Banton with Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton back, the usage really cratered down as well. He was really operating as like the second lead usage guy when all these guys were out. I would expect him, if Grant is out, to essentially operate as like the fourth lead usage guy. But note that his big jump in usage all mostly happened with Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton or Scoot Henderson out of the lineup. So kind of a big difference in note. I felt like we were over projecting him a little bit last game because of the recent usage, and it came down quite a bit. Lakers and Kings, last game of the slate to talk through. The Lakers injury report remains the same as always. LeBron James is questionable once again. Anthony Davis is probable. The only difference is those Cam Reddish probable tags have turned into out tags. They're still without Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, and Christian Wood as well. So what are your expectations for what we see from the Lakers tonight?
Yeah, like you said, pretty straightforward here. They don't really need to replace the Cam Reddish minutes. They've been running Spencer Dinwiddie up there. Taurean Prince minutes are a little bit safer, a little bit more minutes ceiling. They'll sneak in Max Christie if they need to. But again, big game here for the Lakers. I think they want this one quite bad. We were really shocked at LeBron's side against the Bucks, but like they need this one, man. If they want to get out of this hole, much like with the Warriors, they're going to go for it. I want to start with LeBron. And should mention that the Lakers offense has been quite good. In their last 12 games, they're number 2 in offense. While their defense has slipped, they've been 25th. So they've completely flipped the script from going from bad-ish offense to great defense to the other way around. But let's talk LeBron really quick. Over his last 7 games, 16 potential assists. That's second in the league behind Luka. 6 minutes of touch time. And they're just letting him run the ball. They're letting him go off here. We saw him have pretty good stats against the Kings earlier this year. He's got a 31, 28, and a 27-point game, pretty much flirting with a triple-double per game. I expect the minutes to be really strong. Harrison Barnes can't guard him. We'll talk about him in a second. So really like this matchup for LeBron James, as Chat has noted. You would think Anthony Davis would crush offensively. He's been kind of like so-so. I still think he could dominate. We know that the Kings are pretty vulnerable. So it's going to be a two-headed monster. Obviously, D'Lo's playing well, but he has lost his handling because LeBron's running the show. So it's kind of like a pretty big trend nowadays is just for the show, for the teams of the slate, like a lot of wings are handling a lot. And the point guards are losing it. Just to kind of cut that was interesting when I was writing matchups today. But yeah, should be pretty tight. Rui Hachimura crushed the Kings last time to get 27. So, and again, national TV game, really important game. Not a back-to-back for the Lakers. We could see some 40s tonight.
Kings have not fouled there on the second night of back-to-back, but we do know a couple things. One, Keegan Murray was questionable yesterday, went through shoot-around, missed the game. So imagine that he'll come with some sort of tag tonight. Also, Trey Lyles left yesterday's game, did not return after just playing 8 minutes. So what are you expecting from the Kings injury report tonight? They started Keon Ellis last night in the absence of Keegan Murray, which was a little bit surprising. And then obviously without Trey Lyles in the second half as well, the minutes got pretty high on Harrison Barnes. He got up to 32, and Kevin Huerter didn't get cut down quite as much as we would have expected, 25 for him. So what are your notes? This was against a Milwaukee team that plays similarly big to the Lakers, at least from the front court perspective. It was interesting that Sacramento chose to go a little bit smaller in terms of their approach, and obviously very successful here. I think a lot of that has to do with point of attack defense on Damian Lillard because Keon Ellis is their best defender. But what are your thoughts on how Sacramento handles things and what your expectation is for Keegan Murray and Trey Lyles tonight?
Like, is one, I think that you could make a case that they sat Keegan to make sure he's ready for tonight, right? Again, this game is really, really important for them. Let him get right. I think they kind of knew this back-to-back. They'd sit him out. Went through shoot-around yesterday. Went through practice 2 days ago. Ankle injury didn't look that bad. He's young. I think he's going to play. If he doesn't play, Damian Lillard, lead handler, is a lot different than LeBron James, lead handler. I know you guys come for the riveting analysis. So I kind of think they would go a different way. Not having Lyles is pretty tough. I don't know what else they could really do. I guess they would try to go to Chris Duarte just if there's somebody at LeBron who's a little bit more size there, just to help. I don't know if they want to have Harrison Barnes guard him that much. So it's kind of like my lean that they would not go to Keon, but like that worked yesterday. So, and Mike Brown noted after the game, I think they had 18 deflections, and he said they want all their 50-50 balls. So like, hey, maybe they start that way, and if it's going great, but quick plug pull. So I guess taking that back, I guess they would start the same way. But again, I'm expecting Keegan to play.
Right.
Yeah, we have Trey Lyles out of the rotation for now. Instant. We knew he was getting ruled out. We had an under on him. I saw him pull up, grab his leg. We lost this bet. Over. Excuse me. So yeah, that he's out. I expect him to miss multiple games. That would give Malik Monk all the usage in the second unit, and sixth man of the year. He beat Bobby Portis. Sixth man of the year is over now. I'll never mention it again. No, just kidding. I'm definitely going to mention it again. But yeah, and then we'll see a little bit more bigs. I think they're going to run, the centers for most of their non-Sabonis minutes. Could be a lot of Sabonis minutes. And then, we'll sprinkle in some Davion Mitchells, and they're way more secure here as well.
Yep. And also would note, Harrison Barnes, we went into last game thinking he played elevated minutes historically against LeBron. Did not last game. These two teams played just last week, I think it was. So we'll see tonight without Trey Lyles if that changes things. But obviously, as you alluded to last night in terms of the Keegan Murray planning, a matchup against the 9 seed in your own conference when you're the 7 versus a matchup versus a team in the other conference is way different in terms of importance. So hoping to see Keegan Murray out there tonight as well.
Something we will definitely remember next time we see a LeBron Q tag at the conference, just to note.
On that note, you can watch that game alongside us tonight on playback.tv/ETR. We will be going live at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll start with that Miami and Denver game and flip around League Pass depending on what games are intriguing, what games you have bets to sweat, so on and so forth. We do have 20 free daily editions of League Pass to be able to hand out during the show. So we will support at least 20 of you that are able to get League Pass for the night and watch alongside with us. If you join us on playback.tv/ETR, you can hit that join button to make sure you're a part of the channel going forward and get notifications. It'll be myself, Mike Gallagher, Chris Lafficus, and we'll see who else from the ETR team wants to hop on. But we'll be sweating the games for 2 hours, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern time. Would really appreciate if you are watching basketball, joining us. And we'll be, taking questions on our betting process, what bets we made for the night, if we thought, if we would have changed things. There's definitely been a lot of bets that we've made of late that once we see how the rotations are panning out, we can tell you if we felt like we did a good job or a bad job real quickly in these situations. But we can talk through those. And it's a good way to be able to interact with us. So join us tonight, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern on playback.tv/ETR. As always, if you're interested in supporting the great content that we're putting out here, the best way to do so is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, get notifications by hitting that bell whenever we go live, and of course, help us in our pursuit of 5,000 subscribers to the YouTube channel by the end of the NBA season. We're just a couple hundred short. Would really appreciate your help in getting us there. If you're interested in our premium content, you can go to establishedrun.com/subscribe-NBA for more details on our premium products. Tonight on the premium show Behind the Paywall, it'll be myself and Chris Lafficus at 5 o'clock Eastern time, talking about the good chalk, the bad chalk. Maybe we'll talk about bad chalk. It's with Chris Lafficus, so who knows? There is no bad chalk with Chris Lafficus. So we'll talk through the good chalk. I'll touch on some bad chalk. Maybe Chris will as well. We'll talk through some leverage plays, the contrarian plays, and of course the flag plants. So join us at 5 o'clock Eastern tonight. Myself and Chris Lafficus Behind the Paywall, establishedrun.com /subscribe-MBA for more details on our premium product offerings. And if you're enjoying this free content and want to keep it free, the best way to do so is to smash that like button and help feed the algorithm. That helps us feed our families and allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your season-long lineups, your DFS lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm. Nom, 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 nom. I'll see you on Friday. Mark Dankenbring and Mike Gallagher will be here tomorrow. Enjoy the day, everybody.